All right, we're rolling. Hey, everyone, it's me, Jesse, and wanted to put together an episode today around, I think, what should be a pretty interesting topic, and one that I would say was very helpful for me in the last year. So I mentioned on a previous episode that I had the best production year, the best results that I've ever had in this business in 2021. And I was doing somewhat of a retrospective and looking back at last year. And part of that was going through all of the old photos on my phone from 2021. And not only do I have pictures I took on my phone, but I also take a lot of screenshots. Anytime I see a social post or a new podcast episode or a news article or just some thing, I'll actually screenshot that so I can look back on it later. And I was scrolling back through, looking at everything that I had screenshot and all the pictures I'd taken last year. And I stumbled across a really good one from January 12th, 2021, just about a year ago today. And it was a post by Morgan Ingram, Morgan J. Ingram to be exact, if you're looking for him on LinkedIn. He is someone I've been following for a very long time. I believe he's got a podcast himself. I think he works for John Barrows, who has a podcast. And he does sort of sales training and coaching specifically geared towards SDRs and folks that are doing heavy prospecting. That said, he had what I think is just solid gold advice on a post that he made last year. And it was all about color coding your calendar. Now, I had been doing something very similar to this before I read this post, but I like the way that he makes it very simple. Mine was a little bit more complex and harder to keep up on. So I wanted to just read this post and then share a little bit about how I manage my calendar every week, because I do think that that's one of the things that if you can get into the habit of having full control over your schedule and being able to look ahead on, say, a Sunday night or an early Monday morning and knowing what you have coming down the funnel for the week, I think it's going to be one of those things that really alters your outcomes for the year. So let's dive into it. I'm going to just read the post verbatim, and then I'll provide some context into how I took this advice and began managing my calendar with color coding. So his post is color code your calendar. Here is a starter kit to begin getting your time management in order. So he has this little green block and it says green. Green is to get things accomplished. And then he has in parentheses, money-making activities. Yellow. Yellow is prep for green activities, doing research on accounts, building a list in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, etc. And then he said red, take a break. So here's how I adopted this post 1 year ago, or sort of merged it with what I was already doing and how I tend to make blocks on my calendar to manage my time. So I was already marking my prospect facing or customer facing conversations, whether that's a discovery call, a demo, a negotiation call, an implementation oriented call, something that involves me getting the sale or me talking money or working towards moving something along in my pipeline. I mark that in green. And it's typically something that's prospect or customer facing. So I carve those out in green in my calendar. I color code them. And then yellow is for the prep activities. So whether you're preparing for a green call, you mark that time in yellow, but maybe you're also doing something like making cold calls, sending customized emails, or doing account research. I would block that time and mark it in yellow. And then I love the red. That was something I wasn't doing that I took away from this post, which was block time away in red. So whether you've got a lunch break, you're heading to the gym, you're going to a doctor's appointment, or you just need to take a 15-minute walk around the block that in your calendar and mark it in red. And then you know that that's your time to break away, recharge, regroup before you get back to these yellow and green activities. Now, the only thing I do slightly different is for corporate, or I shouldn't say corporate, but company-wide all hands meetings or company trainings or any sort of activity or meeting related to just being a good corporate citizen at your company. I tend to just leave those in the default blue that Google has for events in the calendar. I also started implementing tasks, which is something that Google Calendar does. You can put tasks and you can actually check them off. Now, keep in mind when you put tasks in your calendar, no one can see those. So it actually doesn't block the time. But if you are wanting to block the time to complete tasks, do a separate, block in your calendar around those specific tasks. And then a lot of times I'll just put little 15-minute reminders to do different things. And maybe that's follow up with a prospect. Maybe it's to send a personalized note to somebody. Maybe it's to post something that shows thought leadership on LinkedIn or Twitter. And so you get the idea that I'll actually go in and block time for specific activities. And I do the same with things like cold calling. I'll block an hour to go and make cold calls. I'll block an hour to go and write some emails and send those out to a targeted list. So I think it's really important. And one thing that I've observed working with some of the top reps in the SaaS industry is they're very, very guided and very structured on their time, and they manage their calendar extremely tight. So definitely a good practice and a good habit to get into. I think Morgan's suggestion of color coding is a really good one, and one that I took to heart a year ago, and I can look back and say that it was definitely helpful for me in managing my time and being more productive. So with that said, hopefully you found this interesting and helpful. Reach out with your other ideas around how you manage your time. Maybe there's something I could be doing that would level my game up even more. I'd love to hear about it. Any ideas you have, send them my way. And yeah, thanks for listening.